Andrew, what's going on, my friend? What's up, dude? How are you?
What? How did we find each other? This is great, Chase. I'm doing
I
great. How
know.
about yourself?
How many pods have we done together? Like three or
I don't.
four?
I think it's at least three. I was thinking the same thing when we were talking before the show. I'm like, I feel like we've done a few. I feel like there's at least a couple. I know I was on intervention a couple years ago. I feel like I did that, and I know there's been a couple others. I
With
feel like I've
Taylor
had you on.
too.
Yeah, I think there was one. I think maybe it was you, me, and Taylor. But yeah, it's been a few. I know I always see you on Twitter and stuff too. Like we're obviously following each other's work, and I know you're doing a whole bunch of stuff now with Trophy Smack. We were talking about before the show too. Like just kind of living a dream. I don't want to say the dream, but it's a dream, right? Like you're doing
It
what you got to
is.
do and getting out there and grinding. I love seeing your work, man.
Dude, it is fun, man. Hold on, I gotta shut my window. There's a bunch of jets outside. It's been kind of crazy, man, but it's been fun. I'm glad the summer's here. Kind of gives me that breather, before the storm. Obviously, this is a time where we all kind of take a little bit of a break, pump the brakes a little bit, which is why we're covering the divisions. But
Yep.
tonight we have some big time divisions to discuss. Are you ready to kick the show off?
Ready as I'm gonna be, buddy.
All right, let's do this.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
What is going on, everybody? It is time. It is Wednesday night. We are here. We are ready to go. We've got warmed up already. I got warmed up, at least. Andrew, I don't know. Are you warmed up? You ready to rock and roll?
Warmed as I'm ever gonna be, baby. Let's do this thing. It's summertime. I'm hot. Let's go.
It is hot. Yes, by the way, Jamie, Shane is on his grinder date right now. I think he's in the back of a Walmart, just like his Tinder date from a couple weeks before. So, hey, dude, it is what it is, man. Whatever gets you going. What's going on, Fly Meat? Well, let's see those comments in the chat. Let's get everything rocking and rolling for the show tonight because we have the AFC North and the AFC South. And of course, I have somebody, if you couldn't tell in the background, right? Somebody very special at Andrew Hall FF over there on Twitter. Andrew, what's going on, man? How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great, Chase. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And anytime we're talking AFC North, I get called on a lot of AFC North podcasts, and I got to be honest, I love it. It's my favorite division. And obviously, I mean, AFC is a nice division right now. There's a ton of talent, a ton of fantasy relevant players. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk it up to you tonight and figure out how we can help our viewers, help our listeners kind of get the best of their trades and figure out where to go next in their leagues.
Dude, that's the reality of it. It's like, first off, before we go into everything that you do, the AFC North feels like just the cheat code this year. I mean, it's a lot of bad defenses, right? It's a lot of dynamic offenses. And we're talking about a schedule matchup where, hey, you got the AFC South, which we're also going to talk about, which should be easy to score on. Also, some offenses that are emerging. We should see a lot of points scored. Not just some. I was about to say we should see some points scored. We should see a lot of points scored out of the AFC North this year, which makes every aspect of owning them in Dynasty actually enticing, right?
Oh, for sure. And I think the way the AFC North team's set up, it kind of funnels well, too. I mean, obviously, the Bengals are one of the top offenses in fantasy right now. But even then, you've got, the other teams that we'll get into, of course, and, how they each kind of funnel into their own thing. But they all have their own question marks, too, which makes it kind of fun to talk about. I mean, again, you're entirely right that the defenses are all have question marks and holes, which means it's, time for one of those like 35-31 kind of games. We love that in fantasy. That's exactly what we're looking for. So, yeah, it should be a whole lot of points scored this year. I agree.
Yeah, and it was kind of disappointing this past year. Obviously, we had DeMar Hamlin, which was a tragic situation in Week 17. But let's go ahead and, you know what, I was going to start out with a different team, but let's go ahead and start out with the Bengals, who have the Chiefs in Week 17. I mean, this is a sexy team to own going into their schedule to finish out the year. I mean, we've got, let's see, yeah. I mean, the Chiefs, right? The Steelers, the Vikings, the Colts, the Jaguars. I mean, the Colts were good last year on defense, but overall, I mean, this is pretty sexy lineup to finish out the year that should get you into your fantasy playoffs and possibly to the championship. And if you're in the championship facing the Chiefs, I mean, that should be a gimme. It should be a gimme if you have Bengals and Chiefs players.
It's going to be on New Year's Eve. It's going to be a 4:00 game, which I think is the best window in my opinion. I don't mind the island games and all of that, but I love to get into the 4:30 Eastern games. Those are my favorites. I just feel like that's its own kind of island in a way. You're going up against some West Coast teams. You might get like a Rams Seahawks matchup against it on Fox, and you're like, I'll just tune it into CBS and ready to roll. But that way, it's not like a late night island game. It's a really good way to kind of let that last game of the season, last game of that week, even other than that Monday night game, or sorry, the Sunday night and Monday night game, but just kind of like lock it in, put it down. I'm excited to watch that game, and yeah, both of those teams have a history with each other. And it is going to be points. I have a strong feeling. Again, it's at Kansas City, which I think helps too, because there's a lot less likelihood of snow, but there could still be some in December 31st. You never know. So again, like the weather games are always kind of entertaining, but man, going back to Kansas City after the AFC title game last year, there's going to be a whole lot of storylines building up on that one. That's going to be a great game for everybody to watch. And hopefully, again, knock on wood, no weird injuries this year, no stress marks. Let's just keep it easy, keep everybody even. Like, let's just make it a good game. And no weird penalties. Like, let's not make any bad decisions. Like, all of that. I'm excited for it. And we're here talking about it in June, and it's 6 months away, and I'm still very excited for it.
You do bring up a good point, right? And I didn't think about this up until just now. Kansas City with the snow potentially, around that time of year. And when we check out the flex scheduling, right, how they move games Thursday night to Sunday night to Monday night. But I think they're holding off the Thursday night flexing, right?
They're still. I think they're doing it. Is it this year or next year? I don't remember, but I really doubt that they would move a game like this to Thursday night. But yeah, you're still going to have some of those games later in the year that I think they are going to flex Thursday this year.
Well, I wonder if they
make it interesting.
If they say, hey, it could snow on Sunday night, or hey, it could snow on Monday night, if they would still flex it, or if they would leave it in that prime spot, which makes that even more interesting. I didn't really think about that up until now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting too, because again, barring something crazy, both of those teams should be very dominant and come into that, into that game. I wouldn't say number 1 and number 2 seed. That's a little presumptive, but I mean, like top 3 vying for a bye, like that always matters. And if there is a chance that one of the two has it locked up, then that game might matter less to that team, and I don't want to show anything off. Like, it's hard to say, because again, both of these teams are in conferences that they could kind of walk to, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm not saying the Bengals are going to do great, but it's one of those, like, we have a lot to figure out before we get there, but no matter what, it's going to be the game of the week. I almost guarantee it.
Taylor, we were talking about you earlier, man. If you want to hop on, shoot me a DM, or actually let me know in the chat. I'll check my DMs on Twitter. We could bring you in for this breakdown. But no, so let's go ahead and let's talk about Ja'Marr Chase and how he's a secondary option in fantasy football at the wide receiver position to Justin Jefferson, right?
Yeah, I mean, I personally have Chase ahead. I'm not gonna lie, I get the logic, but I mean, like, I have Chase ahead of Jefferson. But yeah, I mean, there's no wrong answer there. And as Jamie's mentioned too, like, he does tear up the secondary. He does do a really good job, kind of breaking down that Chiefs defense. And I think that's, I mean, again, I am a little biased, I'm not gonna lie, but I just feel like that whole offense is a little bit better than the Vikings offense right now, especially with Dalvin Cook on the move. I'm just kind of curious to see what that Vikings offense looks like with Jordan Addison too. Like, how much is he going to get? I mean, again, it's very possible that Addison is the Higgins to, Justin Jefferson, right? When Ja'Marr Chase has Higgins. So there's a whole bunch of fun there, but I just feel like the longevity factor, the intangible factor, Burrow to Chase, is just something you don't see all the time. And what's great is that they were both, playing with Burrow in college, which is just bonkers to me, that you had, Justin Jefferson and Ja'Marr Chase on the same team. It's just like, what the hell were we even seeing? Like, that's crazy thinking back. So I love it. I love it. It works.
It is bizarre. And it's kind of bizarre how late Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins as well, by the way, your other wide receiver, went in rookie drafts, how they went the back of the half of the first round versus, the front half, and seeing how good they are now. I mean, it's just nasty what the wide receiver crew from LSU and what the Bengals put together as well. So let's talk about T. Higgins. Is there a chance that T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase for you could finish in the top 12? Or do you think Higgins is going to take a back seat? Do you think he's going to finish up as wide receiver 2? Because, I mean, obviously you can't have Joe Mixon finishing as a running back 2. You can't have Tyler Boyd finishing up in that range, up in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. You can't have T. Higgins finishing in that range and Ja'Marr Chase being dominant at that point. Can you? Like, there's no way. There's just too much, I guess, competition for targets.
Yeah, I mean, what you prefer is like we were saying before, like funneling to one person, right? And I think Jamar Chase, you would love it if he would get all the funnel and all the targets, but I think Higgins really opens him up, which is why they're a perfect tandem. I also feel like though there is a chance that Higgins is like a back end wide receiver one, as like a tight, wide receiver type, like 10 to 12 somewhere in there. But I'm not going to be upset at all if you got Chase as wide receiver 2 overall and Higgins at wide receiver 14, right? That's still a dominant offense. I do like Tyler Boyd a lot too in late best ball drafts and things like that. I'm snagging him everywhere I can. I just feel like he's one of those guys that has a ton of upside. Again, you go against defense, they're all going to be focusing on Chase and Higgins. Then all of a sudden Boyd goes off for 9 catches, 120 yards and a touchdown. Like it's very possible. So it's just this offense. It's like whack-a-mole, right? Who do you stop? Who do you guard? And then they got Irv Smith, which again, he might be something this year. So there's just so much talent.
You're getting ahead. First off,
I'm just excited, Chase.
You're getting ahead, okay? Second off, let's talk about best ball because I'm pretty sure we're back to back in one, if not two, best ball leagues right now. And both of them I auto drafted in and took a third quarterback for me, and I just can't handle that. It was a Sunday fun day. I don't want to talk about it once again.
Hey, it's happened to me too, man. That man, I tell you what, that Underdog app gets kind of wonky on my phone sometimes. I don't do fast drafts on it anymore. It just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, actually, there's an app that I'll tell you about. I'm trying to get a sponsorship from it, so I cannot mention it yet. But there is a best ball app that you 100% need to download. It saved my life pretty much.
Oh,
but
nice.
Well, not from auto drafting on Sunday fun days. But anyways, let's go ahead and let's hop over to the fourth wide receiver. What seems to be outside of Trenton Irwin. Let's talk about Charlie Jones, right? Who profiles as a phenomenal slot wide receiver. With Tyler Boyd on his last year. And honestly, he's going undrafted. He's sitting on a lot of people's waiver wires in Dynasty. Is Charlie Jones worth picking up, in your opinion? Like, do you have him on your Dynasty rosters, or is he somebody that you're like, I kind of want to wait and see? He's not really that, special of an individual.
Man, I'll tell you what, I got him on a few rosters. And Taylor in the chat here, Chuck says, well, I agree. Chucky is the guy. I'm telling you, the stuff that I've seen of him already has just been really good. And I think, again, if you're going to be learning behind a guy like Tyler Boyd, you don't have to come out of the gate hot. He's a perfect taxi squad stash for Dynasty. I know some leagues I'm in still have that. And he is going undrafted in some rookie drafts, which makes no sense to me, but I kind of get it just because there's so much chaos in that offense and who wants the fourth option. But I just feel like he's going to be the guy that takes over for Boyd if they don't re-sign him. And they have a history of not re-signing players like Boyd as much as he is, a captain and a good locker room presence and all this. I don't know if the team doesn't have a history of doing that. I doubt they break the mold for Boyd. Maybe they do. But back to Chuck. I mean, I think, again, he's one of those guys that I love grabbing in the 4'11", 4'10" kind of range. It's just as good as any other pick at that range in my mind. And I think, again, you're looking to catch lightning in a bottle. And what better team to put lightning on? You know what I mean? Like, this has got some of the best offensive sizzle we've seen. And Chuck is the perfect fit there. So, yeah, I love Charlie Jones this year.
Yeah, and it honestly goes to show they don't love tight ends, as you brought up Irv Smith Jr. before we get into him, because that's our next topic. Taylor brings up that T was a top 12 player on point-per-game basis. When you remove his 3 games, we left early with injury. Also, T. Higgins without Jamar Chase 2 years ago, I remember doing a study. He was on pace to being, I think, the second or third leading receiver in the NFL in games that Jamar Chase is not playing. So I actually took a bet for 2022. I put $100 on it where Higgins would actually lead the league in receiving because the odds were just absolutely insane. Obviously, I lost that one, but it is interesting to see where Higgins could end up finishing moving forward. And if Higgins is actually a value right now, or if he's going to lose value if he ends up moving on from the team after this year. Do you think Higgins is more valued now or more value if he ends up with, let's just say, I don't know, the Patriots or another team that could end up signing a wide receiver in free agency?
Well, I personally think that I'll answer this question in a different way while still answering it. I think his highest value is with the Bengals. I think he'd be the wide receiver one on almost any other team that is going to sign him for something like that. But that being said, I think the Bengals re-sign him, and I don't think they let him hit free agency for at least a few years.
Really?
I think they come up with a way to make the numbers work. It's been a talk of town around here in Cincinnati. I would not be shocked at all to see a Higgins signing happen before the season starts. I also wouldn't be shocked to see a Burrow signing and kind of an extension and some weird, crazy number manipulation thing there. I think that they're trying to get their ducks in a row while they still can. The fact that they didn't go and draft an early running back makes me think they're going to ride the wheels off of Mixon, of course. That just means they're saving some extra money for Higgins, in my opinion. And again, I don't think he hits free agency like we're expecting. Some people are expecting him to do after this year. So I feel like his best spot is on the Bengals, and I think he stays on the Bengals. So I feel like his value is probably about where it needs to be. My personal opinion there.
Before I answer that question from Jamie, is there a chance that Jamie brings up, is there a chance that he actually goes to the Bills?
Personally, again, I doubt it. I just don't see the Bengals letting him go like that. Especially in free agency, like they would want to get something for him. I think it'd be more likely that they and again, I don't want to say it and like bring it into fruition, like make it manifest it, right? But I think if there's a chance where the Bengals are struggling out of the gate, or have a rough patch before the bye or something like that, where they're like, I don't know, 3-5, and they're coming up against the trade deadline, I wouldn't be shocked to see them move Higgins or move Mixon or something like that to teams that need it. I mean, I just feel like that's kind of. I'm just saying that's the only way I would see them moving Higgins. I just don't think they're going to let him walk. I honestly don't believe so. I think they're going to re-sign him and all that. So to answer Jamie's question, what if he goes to the Bills? Well, that would be amazing. That would be awesome for Higgins. I think it'd be awesome for Josh Allen. I think it'd be awesome for Stephon Diggs, right? Like that'd be great for everybody.
Stephon Diggs might be on the way out anyways by that point. Stephon Diggs
was overblown. He was back today. Everything's fine. I'm
saying he's going to be 30, right?
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
He's going to be fantasy relevant. Dude, that got me so wet, Jamie. Like, I just thought about him going to the Bills. Like, I don't know if you saw my face as I'm sitting there, like, thinking about it. And the more I thought about it, the wetter I got. It was pretty insane. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's hop on. Obviously, you're spending a lot of time on the Bengals, which is okay. I brought you on for that reason. But Jamie brings up the Boyd's targets have decreased significantly the past 4 years. Obviously, they didn't have Jamar Chase or T. Higgins 4 years ago when he had 150. That following year, they didn't have Jamar Chase. They just had T. Higgins. Then when he had 90, injuries played a role, obviously, with Jamar Chase missing time, and then he went down to 80. So is there any chance that Chuck actually cuts in to Tyler Boyd's targets this upcoming year, or do you think that 80 is pretty much going to be the lowest number he sees before he hits free agency in 2024?
Well, Boyd is getting older too, right? And again, he's on an offense now where he's not the top dog. He really hasn't been the top dog on the Bengals ever, but he's been a terrific under the radar in the middle field, kind of, short slot kind of catcher guy. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Jones sees the field more due to injuries or somebody getting held out for whatever reason. Like, again, we've seen this with the Bengals a lot. Mixon, it happened all the time where he's got an ankle injury. He's questionable leading up to Sunday. He's active, but they don't play him. I wouldn't be shocked if we see something like that, like game management like that from Higgins or Chase or even Boyd. And so Jones starts to get some more reps as the season goes along. So I do think, I think Boyd's in line for that 80 kind of, somewhere in that 80 targets sort of range. I don't think that that's out of hand. I'd be shocked if Jones sees that. I don't think that I'm expecting that at all, but I wouldn't be shocked if Jones gets half that and sees 30 or 40 targets throughout the year. At that point, you're looking at 3 targets a game, give or take. I could see that, right? Especially in garbage time, which could very well happen with this Bengals team. So, yeah, I think it's on the table, but I don't think it eats into Boyd too much in year one.
Yeah, I think 80 is pretty much the floor as to what we're going to see for 2023. Let's go ahead and bring up Irv Smith Jr., one of my favorite players, in terms of a sleeper option. Obviously, at this point, if he does go off this year, I'm done. He has no value in terms of fantasy right now. Like, I don't know that I would even trade a third for him. That's like borderline. But if I have him, I'm also not trading him for a third because you've held him for this long. Now he's the starting tight end for a team that used Hayden Hurst. We saw relevance from the tight end position over the past 2 years in certain games. It's just tough to trust and know when that's going to happen. Is Irv Smith Jr. a fantasy asset? Is he somebody that we're not talking about redraft, we're talking about dynasty, but let's just say in redraft, are you even messing with him in redraft or probably not?
I mean, in redraft, not unless it's a crazy deep league. Like in Scott Fishbowl, I could see it, right? Where you go 22 rounds. Like I could see that logic where there's no trading. Like you're kind of stuck with who you get and who's on waivers in a sense. Like in a specific league with settings like that, sure. But generally, I'm not too excited about drafting a backup tight end in most normal, 15 roster spot kind of leagues. I mean, maybe if you get like a Chigakonkwo, kind of do some of that, like Cooper talks about the yin yang strategy, right? Where you get a couple, like a high upside and a high floor guy. But I mean, ultimately, I'm looking for if I'm in a redraft league where tight end is a requirement, which is kind of rare sometimes, even for me. My home league went to 3 wide receiver tight end slots, which I think is brilliant. Which means you don't have to start one, which I think everybody should do, especially in redraft. Hey, I'm just saying it helps. But I'm getting into this like I think Irv Smith has some upside, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's on waivers in week 2 when he goes off, and then everybody's spending fab on him. So just my thought.
What is happening in fantasy football? Are we going to be positionless at some point? I mean, defenses are going, kickers are going, and now you're talking about tight ends. Are you serious? And you like that?
I do. It's less stress, honestly. Like there's nothing.
All right, Kirk Cousins.
Well, I'm just saying it's more like it's for redraft, especially I like it in Dynasty having a tight end slot because you see tight ends take some time to come to and to kind of learn what's going on. But I can't tell you how many times in redraft I'm just streaming a tight end position anyway. Like it's just a chaos.
Part of it.
It's just chaos, man. I want less chaos. I want more skills. That's just my logic. Everyone's allowed to have different opinions. I'm just giving you mine.
No, nope. You're not allowed to have that opinion. It's done. Nobody listen. Everybody strike that last 30 seconds or 20 seconds from your minds. All right. Make sure also while you're striking that from your minds, you're also hitting subscribe. You're hitting like over there on the YouTube channel. Big shout out to everybody that is listening. Go to youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's youtube.com/fantasy intervention. Honestly, I really don't want to talk about the running back position because I think it's pretty dead set, in terms of, hey, if Joe makes some plays, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. In terms of his backups, right, Chase Brown, Travion Williams are pretty much neck and neck, but there's not much excitement there. Like, I'm not, excited to start either one of those guys. Are you excited to own either one?
Well, Evans, I'm excited about. I don't know if you really want to get down that rabbit hole with Chris Evans.
You're going Chris Evans.
Yeah. I think Chase Brown is a 5th rounder. I don't know if he sees a lot of time. Travion's
Chris Evans was a 6th round.
Correct. But Chris Evans has shown value on punt returns. He's actually learned the playbook. I think he's got some more valuability anyway than Chase Brown does. He's still got to learn a lot and is not great in pass protection. So I'm looking at Chris. All of them are deep sleep.
I feel like they're the same players, to be honest.
Very much so. Yes, but
with limited skill sets, but they do have a certain skill set. But I mean, I don't want to own anyone in fantasy. I'm not going out trying to acquire Chase Brown in any dynasty leagues, right?
No, I'm saying they're all worth a 3rd or 4th round pick at best, right? That's their upside. I'm saying I think the one I'm picking though is Chris Evans. I just feel like one of those running back deals, put that running back on my roster, on my bench, and we'll see what happens. That's how it is with most of those backups, not a lot of value there, but
I can't with you. We talked about Jamar Chase, and now he's saying Chase Brown. They should.
Lots of Chase talk tonight, Chase. This is your kind of show.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that before the show started. But hell yeah, let's go. All right, I should have brought some stats about me. Oh, maybe destroying the fantasy football convention, flag football.
There you go. You were talented. That was good. All
right, let's go ahead and let's hop over to the Browns. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, is he washed, or did we just see a rusty version of Deshaun Watson? Does he ever reach that? If you had to say this is his, his range, right? We have super elite, we have elite, we have very good or great, and then we have very good, and then we have good, and then we have moderate. And last year he performed at a good, if not moderate rate. So what do we see from 2023? Oh yeah, that's right. I think Jamie's son name is named Chase, by the way, too.
That's a whole Chase-centric show. This is the way it should be.
So strange.
I'm not a fan of Deshaun Watson's off-the-field antics. I don't know anyone that is. But if you're willing to compartmentalize that and say, never mind, I'm good with the points and not worrying about the ethics or the morals, that's perfectly fine. I'm not here to go either direction with that. I'm just saying if you want to do that, go for it. I do think we saw a rusty version of Deshaun Watson last year. I think that he's probably just kind of getting settled back in and figuring out the routine again. And he was off for a whole year. I mean, that's a lot of rust, to be honest with you. And again, all the off-field
year and a half.
And all the off-field drama causes stress. You're not sleeping right. You're sleeping in weird places. I'm saying there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens off the field that we're not sure.
You're sleeping in weird places like Shane behind Walmarts and dumpsters and stuff.
I'm not going to get into where Shane dates or who he dates.
No, I just said.
But yes, I know what you mean. Yeah, he does date in weird places. I'm saying it more like you're traveling across the country for different, hearings or different family visits and different tryouts and there's a whole bunch of chaos that he was dealing with for a year and a half, right? And again, I think if you knock a lot of that off and kind of get back to the actual football of things, I think we saw what we should expect to see from Deshaun Watson this year near the end of last year when he was kind of back in the rhythm. Again, I don't know if I put him in that elite or super elite kind of tier. I don't think he's ever going to get quite back up to there. Just because there's age is a thing that chases us all down, right? You use the term chase again. But my thought process in all of this is I think Deshaun Watson is more in that QB 10 to 15 kind of range, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think, if you can get him for, less than that and kind of add him to your roster for what you think would be a deal, then go for it. I don't know if his upside is any more in that QB 6 range, partially too, because the QB landscape is just blown up lately. We've seen so much value in QB. I mean, Jalen Hurts coming out of nowhere. Justin Herbert's still up there. Lamar Jackson just signed a new contract. We got Joe Burrow about to sign a deal-breaking, league-breaking contract. There's just so many good quarterbacks at the top. And then there's this kind of middle section where it's and then it gets really gross. So it's really studs and duds lately anyway with quarterback. And so I feel like if I'm going to pick one of the two, Watson's in the studs category. But again, he's not somebody I'm investing in, I guess, whether I'm contending or rebuilding. Personally, just because there's a lot of risk with that. And most of the time when I've tried to acquire him, it's at his ceiling price in my mind, and I'm not willing to pay that. It's just, I don't know, it's not the way I play it.
Amari Cooper, value or overrated?
I like Amari Cooper because his value is in that late wide receiver 2 range at this point. He's going in the 20s in some places, even in Dynasty. And I'm like, I think he produces better than that. I think that offense is going to, like you said before, that offense is going to face a bunch of defenses that are going to let points happen. It's going to be somebody. And honestly, after Cooper, it gets kind of bleak. I mean, you got David and Njoku, I guess, which we'll get into. But I mean, their receiving group, I don't know. I'm not that wowed by, even without adding Elijah Moore. They got, was it David Bell, I think is who they got. And they added Donovan Peoples-Jones is there. Like, they got some okay guys, but none of them are really that stellar.
That's a superstar. What are you talking about?
We can disagree on that one too, but my point is none of them are guys I'm excited about like I am with Higgins, right? Like none of them are guys that are like demanding targets, And I think at that point it's a funnel to Cooper. And I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if Cooper sees 150 targets, 125 catches and like 17 touchdowns. There's some crazy god awful number because there's just no one else there. And I think Watson's still got a chip on his shoulder and has something to prove. So I guess we'll see, but I like Cooper a lot this year at his current value.
Honestly, it feels like we have Amari Cooper in a very similar spot to where Cooper Kupp was at, except for Cooper Kupp was just unhealthy, right? He wasn't able to show off his skills because he couldn't finish the season, right? And Amari Cooper is now in an offense that could transform, right? They're talking about just passing, probably close to 300 times more than what they did last year, which is a ton. I don't know how you're going to pass 300 times more, but 200 times is still attainable, especially when they had Jacoby Brissett for over half the season. Now that they end up trying to expand this and what really could open up this can of worms in terms of, do you want to invest in this team, is that they actually go after DeAndre Hopkins, because there's rumors out there that they are. And like Amari Cooper, I want, but I don't want to touch him yet. I don't want to touch him until DeAndre Hopkins signs somewhere.
You know what? That's actually fair. And I was going to mention Hopkins here because there's a lot of chatter about him a couple of different places where he's got history, right? With Bill O'Brien in New England as well. It just, I don't know, it makes me kind of nervous, and DeAndre Hopkins is going to get his wherever he lands. I think he's not washed yet. He's still got plenty in the tank. I just think that the way the Cardinals are built, it makes no sense for them to spend any extra money or time on Hopkins. He wants to go somewhere he can win. I get that. I just don't know if Hopkins chooses the Browns, partially because of the drama, even though there is some like not real drama between him and Watson, just because of that history. It was great, but that just off the field stuff, that's just, I don't know if I want to attach myself to that. They've already got a wide receiver one with Cooper. You'd be vying for some of that in a tough division. Ravens are looking good this year. Obviously, the Bengals we just talked about are looking good. Steelers could still surprise. I mean, it's tough. I'd much rather go to the Patriots and just really kind of focus on the Bills and Dolphins. Jets, maybe with Aaron Rodgers, there's some drama there too, but you'd be the wide receiver one with the Patriots in my mind. You're definitely better.
Yeah, but you're not winning with the Patriots with Mac Jones at quarterback. Get out of here.
I'm still not sure that that's the end result and that's who's QB1 at the start of the season. I feel like there's some other dominoes that I just can't put my brain around it because it makes no sense. I think Jones
Who else would they bring? Who else would they bring in?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think there's a weird chance that it ends up being somebody like a Jimmy Garoppolo or something gets cut and weird offseason drama from Las Vegas and Tom Brady tries to play for Vegas. Like we've seen some crazy stuff lately.
Yeah,
right?
But that can't happen anytime soon. They still got to go through the votes and all that stuff.
I'm well aware. I'm just saying Brady, because he can't get the votes to own it, was like, well, fine, let me play quarterback for this year. And
I missed that.
Well, and even if they did, it's not the point. Like I'm just saying, there's chaos every year.
Okay.
And I'm just saying
if they missed it,
if they miss it, right? And I'm saying there's this other things that come along here.
He's
right?
trying to get both votes. I don't think he's going to actually own the team without getting both votes, but I think he's just trying to get the second set of votes just to drive up the sale price.
Correct.
Drive up the ticket price. I don't think he's actually going to play.
Well, I've said this about Tom Brady for what feels like 2 years now. I think he's done. Oh, well, he's back. Okay, well, he's done now. Nope, wait, he's back. Like I don't trust it till I see it. So week one is still a few months away. That's all I'm saying.
I want to know in the chat, do you guys think that Tom Brady could possibly play for the Raiders, whether it be this year or next year, kind of like Jordan did with the Wizards? I'm just curious. Let us know in the chat. I'm very, very curious.
That would be crazy to see, wouldn't it? Oh,
God, mind blown if that happens. All right, so
too, though.
It is. I love that. Let's go ahead and talk about Njoku. Njoku is an interesting player who has shown us upside. Is he dead to you? Because honestly, I have him in a couple leagues. He's almost dead to me. I'm trying to move him. I almost had somebody bite on a Kadarius Toney trade where I would have gotten Kadarius Toney. Both players have about an equal injury rate, right? I mean, yeah. I think Kadarius Toney has a higher ceiling, although Njoku had a higher ceiling a couple years ago. But he's got to be toast now, right?
I don't think Njoku's entirely toast, but I'm not necessarily excited about him. I'd rather get some of the other players in that same range that I feel like have a higher upside. I think Njoku is still one of those guys that is going to be a solid streamer for tight end. We're going to hear his name all season on all of those redraft shows that we listen to, where it's like, hey, it's waiver wire Wednesday. Who are we picking up? And Njoku's always on the list. Yeah, like he's still under 30% owned in every league because like nobody really wants him. And it's tight end landscape is bleak. Like I don't know. I'm just not excited about him. I know in one league, I think I traded him away for like a 24-second or something, and I was happy about it. I'm like, I'll take that.
Oh my God,
that's
great.
It's a tight end premium. I already had other tight ends, and the guy was like, it's going to be a late second. I'm like, you don't know that. I'll take it and we'll risk it, right? But my thought is the entire time is just like, I don't know. I'm just not sold on that. Anything other than Cooper, I'm kind of avoiding at their value right now. I mean, Njoku's okay value in most places. But yeah, I'd rather have other players, even for cheaper, that I think have a higher upside. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Njoku either.
You know what's funny is when Njoku gets hurt, Jordan Akins is going to start appearing on the waiver wire sheets. Which Jordan Akins,
I can't wait for those takes.
He might appear more on the waiver wires than Njoku has, because Njoku's probably ended up in a rosterable position more often than Akins has. So Akins might have ended up on more sheets than Njoku has.
I mean, very possibly true.
If that, we're
yes.
talking
And actually,
Akers.
That's right. Well, Akins might be one of those guys at a late best ball pick too, right? In your 18th pick, just like pick somebody if you don't have a second tight end, right? Just like, I don't know, throw that on there, see what happens. You got to zig another zag, right? But yeah, I mean, back to Njoku and even just that whole tight end room. I don't know. I just feel like there's not a lot of value there. It's Cooper or nothing for me, like I said before. So I'm just kind of like meh on Njoku, even though he was top 8 tight end point per game. I get that. But that's how bleak the tight end landscape is. It's just a flat circle after the top 5. I don't care.
Jamie brings that up. He was top 8 and tight end points per game last season. Jamie, there's a big issue with this, okay? I understand having a points per game thought process, right? But when you can't play a full season in your entire career in terms of like getting a full snap share, right? We're not just talking about, hey, you play all 16 games or all 17 games. We're talking about playing a full snap share, where we're talking about 70+% snaps in each game. Like, if you can't hit that on a regular basis, it's not even worth owning at that point. Just dump.
Well, and that's why, too, I think that points per game is a fun stat. And I think with every stat, it all matters in context. Like, they all paint a different part of the picture. And there is no right answer here, right? I'm not saying that your stat is terrible and mine is great. I think all stats are flawed in a way. All numbers can be manipulated to paint whatever picture you want. But I also just feel like I don't feel comfortable starting Njoku, which is, again, why he's a perfect streaming candidate. But again, like as someone I want in Dynasty, there's other guys I want that are probably cost less or more fun for me. And Njoku is just like that flat ham sandwich. You're like, yeah, I guess I'll eat it if I have to, but I'd really rather not,
So I do have this stat up on my thread, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. Nick Chubb, which I talked about prior to 2022, I said Deshaun Watson is going to come in and ruin his value. And essentially, if you guys go to my Twitter, you guys can find it at @FF_intervention. You'll see the stat breakdown through the entire process. Did a ginormous thread that also featured my thread from the previous season. With Brissett, Nick Chubb had 23 points per game, a 53.7% snap rate, 1.1 touchdowns per game. With Watson, 5.25 points per game, 61.3% snap rate, 0.2 touchdowns per game. What's here to notice is that in the red zone, right, Deshaun Watson does not. They don't give it to the running back in the red zone, right? So you're going to take away pretty much all of Nick Chubb's value, because where his value came was, number one, volume, which is great. He's still getting the snap share, maybe not the same amount of volume, right? But still the same snap share. His touchdown reduction, though, is huge. And I know that we don't like to rely on touchdowns in fantasy football, but it's almost the exact opposite, right? We're taking away that potential of him getting touchdowns. So although you might hope for touchdowns for Nick Chubb and he gets the volume on the ground, he's not going to get in the receiving game, and he's not going to get the touchdowns. Nick Chubb is a huge fade for me. How do you feel about Nick Chubb?
I love Chubb. And I hate saying that with talking about Shane earlier. I know Shane loves a good Chubb too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just how it goes. But honestly, like, Nick Chubb is one of those guys in redraft I'm targeting everywhere because he's kind of going quietly under the radar somehow. But even with his touchdown, potential being lower and the red zone threat and all this, he's still one of the few real workhorses. I don't know who else is really going to, kind of vie for targets. Maybe, right? Jerome Ford is someone I have on a lot of benches as well. Like, and someone that I like to have in my RB stash kind of thing. But I just don't know if the team's going to lean on him. I mean, honestly, like, Chubb is just such a brawler. I love Chubb as a running back, as a player, as a fantasy asset and all that. I get why he's not going in the top 10 or whatever, but I still think he's one of those guys that, man, I love having a good Chubb in my lineup. You know what I mean? It's just nothing better than that.
There's something good to have with the Chubb in your lineup. I'm not going to lie.
That's right.
But go check out Twitter if you guys want to see my full thread on that. It breaks down why you don't want Chubb in your lineups. And it's not something where it's like, oh, you don't want Chubb because he sees this amount of touches. It actually goes into depth. as to why you don't want Chubb in your lineups. Go check it out over there at @FF_intervention on Twitter. Let's go ahead and hop on to the Steelers. We're running a little bit behind, but let's go ahead
as always.
Yeah, dude, every time, man. Honestly, it's kind of fun not having Shane on the show because I can actually run over without having any kind of like significant worry that he's just going to drop after a certain point. Like, oh, I lost my internet connection. Bullshit.
Sure you did. Need to go get a smoke. I get it.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and let's talk about Kenny Pickett. We're seeing, first off, Kenny Pickett, we're seeing, oh, Pat Freiermuth. Oh, Darnell Washington. Oh, we have this player. They added Allen Robinson. Let's go ahead and let's say that all these receivers are going to be relevant. But we all know that's not the case. Can Kenny Pickett obtain any kind of solidification as a top 15 quarterback this upcoming year with Deontay Johnson, with George Pickens, with Pat Freiermuth, with Allen Robinson, and his rushing upside, which everybody talks about? And we have Najee Harris, who occasionally had 15 target weeks, back, maybe not last year, but the year before that at least.
It was 2 years ago. But yeah, I mean, because with Big Ben, I think before Pickett, it was like 15, 16 targets against the Bengals 1 week, which was nuts. But I mean, to get into Pickett, I feel like Pickett's one of those guys that I love tearing down at quarterback in Superflex leagues and getting Pickett plus something else. I think Pickett is really in for a big uptick this year. I think he's going to do a lot better. I think with rookie quarterbacks, especially, they kind of hit the ground and have to figure a lot of things out. Obviously, Najee had some issues with injuries, and to bring up another Chase, they got rid of Chase Claypool, right? So like, there's another Chase reference in the show.
Oh my God. We need to talk about the
all
AFC
Chase
North
all the time, baby. All I'm saying is I think Pickett is in for a big uptick. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback out of nowhere. He was not that last year. He's going as like the, quarterback 24 or something like that in Dynasty right now. And even in redraft, he's kind of in that QB2 range, in that late QB2 range. I don't mind that valuation on him because I think he outperforms that, if I'm being honest. I think there is a world, of course, where his floor hits, but I think he's got upside this year that he didn't have last year as he's learning this offense a little bit more. The offensive line got a little better for Pittsburgh too, from what I recall. So there are some other little things sort of intangible. Najee's going to be healthier, hopefully. So like, that gives him some more outlets. I just feel like there's nobody that, I'm not worried about Mason Rudolph or whoever behind him. I just feel like Pickett's got nothing but upside at his current value. So I kind of like him as a QB2 in a lot of leagues.
So I don't know where you have Daniel Jones and Sam Howell ranked, but which one would you say they're closer to? Is he closer to Daniel Jones? Or is he closer to Sam Howell?
I think he's closer to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones kind of worries me, for a tangent anyway. Daniel Jones kind of worries me because that offense is a little bit strange on that side of who's going to be catching the ball. It's not, Darren Waller, Saquon Barkley, and the ghost of Darius Slayton. I'm just not worried about that.
Harris Campbell, bro?
I'm not worried about
Wandale
his ankles can't last.
Jalen Hyatt?
Jalen Hyatt, maybe. Wandale
Colin
Robinson,
Johnson.
Maybe, right? Yeah, there are plenty of names that I'll be picking up on waivers in week 8. I get it. I'm just saying that I think there's a chance that Pickett and Jones are closer. Howell, I'm honestly not sure of. I'm just not. Maybe I'm the only guy left that's not on the Howell train. I'm just not digging it. I think that there's a very high likelihood that Jacoby Brissett sees more snaps than Howell this year. And I just feel like that is something I don't want to get involved with. I don't have that threat with Jones or Pickett. And I just think too, if you're, which one?
Do you have Jones behind Pickett?
No. I have Jones ahead of Pickett. I'm saying Jones is definitely a better in my mind, but he's got question marks that are lowering him down a little bit. And I think those same question marks, if don't apply, definitely get closer for Pickett. Talent-wise, I think Jones is probably better. But Danny Dimes is kind of an interesting case study to look at too. If you're looking at points and numbers and all this, he's had a really odd career. And they gave him a ton of money, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to perform at that level without anybody real catching the ball. So I think Pickett is between the two, but I think he's closer to the top side of Jones than he is the top side of Howell. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Wait. So Jones finished up as what, quarterback 12-ish? If you can let us know
something
in the
like that,
chat, let us know exactly where he sits. You said that Pickett's sitting at quarterback 24 right now.
Right, and I think his upside is in that 16 to 18 range, and Howell's in that 20 to 23 range. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's kind of where I put them all as QB2s, but Jones is high, Pickett is mid, and Howell's low.
That's interesting. Especially when I get to bring Colin Johnson up in the middle.
I love when you go deep like that. That's right.
I just love every excuse to be able to do that. Pretty much every other co-host I've ever had would jump off the show by now. So I'm glad we're still here. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get off of the Browns and the Steelers. Actually, do you want to talk about Darnell Washington? Is it just waste time?
I feel bad for him. I think he's a great blocking tight end. For fantasy, he's kind of a no-name.
He's Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah.
He's Mo Alley Cox.
There's a couple
we want great things, right? He's super athletic, but he's going to be a blocker for his entire career. He's Mo Alley Cox. Don't draft him. Wait till he gets dropped to waivers in a couple years. Pick him up, and then once he goes off for one game, has 2 touchdowns, you trade him and get him off your roster, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, I don't mind stashing Darnell, but then trying to get more than you got for him, or like riding some of this off-season camp hype. I mean, I guarantee you there's going to be at least 1 or 2 clips of Darnell Washington this summer of him just blowing up a defensive end or something, and everyone is going to go nuts. And then it's like, oh, right, it's not a points per tackle league. Fantasy, we don't care about that. I do think he sees the field, but again, like I said before, with tight ends, you kind of have to learn the playbook. There's a long adjustment. There's a steep learning curve to kind of get on the field. And Pat Freiermuth is no slouch. I do think Freiermuth's going to get a lot of balls this year and be viable as a tight end option most weeks, better than most. But yeah, I don't think Washington's anybody that, unfortunately for us in fantasy, we really need to worry about right now.
I think it's very funny because there's certain companies that put out these reports, right? That come out every day. You get all these updates, right? And back like 2 or 3 years ago, it was still young kids, right? But it was young kids that were interested in football. Now it's like casuals that are putting stuff out, and they see a video go up of something happens in training camp, and then they put out this big report. Like Donald Parham, right? Parham. Did you see that one where he caught it over a defensive back that was 5'8", and he pushed off completely? He didn't even need to push
one-handed or something. Yeah,
he didn't even need to push off. He literally pushed off, and then he caught it and he fell backwards. And it was like the highlight. Then it's like Donald Parham is pushing for tight end 1. Like position. It's like, oh my god, chill out. Like that wasn't even a good catch. It was just a highlight where a guy faced literally a practice squad defensive back that was 5'9", 7 inches shorter. Or God, he might be
a full foot shorter. Honestly, yeah.
10, yeah. I think 10 inches shorter at that point. That's bizarre. All right. Anything else we need to bring up with the Steelers? Is Najee Harris an interest?
I like Najee again too. Same logic with Pickett. I think they're both going undervalued. I think a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth from last year, and I think Najee still has it's not running back 1 overall, but he still has running back 1 upside. He can still be a running back 1, and you can get him for a song in some leagues. I know every league is different, every market is different, everybody's got their own biases, but I know in one league, for instance, I'm trying to get him, and the guy that owns him, that rosters him, is a Steelers fan. And ain't happening. It doesn't matter what I'm offering. And then there's another league. I think I saw him go for like Dobbins in a third, and I was just like, I think I'd rather have Najee there. So like it values all over the place in my mind. So I think Najee's got plenty of upside. If you're looking for a running back, on the cheap, quote unquote, maybe he's a guy you can target, kind of like Dobbins, to be honest, where it's like one of those guys in the AFC North here too that is going to face a lot of boxes and face a lot of passing offenses. Maybe there's some openings and workhorse kind of status. You don't see that a lot. So there's enough to be happy about with Najee as long as he's healthy, but that's true of every running back.
Yeah, Najee feels like the Joe Mixon of a few years ago for me, where I just didn't like Joe Mixon because he wasn't necessarily efficient. He had a lot of bad weeks where it was like, oh, he got like 10 carries or he got 15 carries for 70 yards, right? But he was still getting the volume. He just wasn't performing. For me, I'm out on Najee where he just doesn't see enough volume. Let's go ahead and move on to the Ravens. Man, this division's loaded, or this team's loaded. I don't know where to go. We're seeing reports Rashad Bateman is dealing with these shots, these cortisone shots they should not have to deal with at this point in time, right? Like it's way too premature for him to be dealing with the pains that he's dealing with. If it was, it should be like serious contact, but he's not dealing with serious contact. So these cortisone shots are very concerning. Meanwhile, he complained, about the offense. It's definitely new offense under Todd Monken. Meanwhile, you have Zay Flowers, who's taken over the Devin Duvernay position, which we expect to be more dynamic. We have Odell Beckham, who's not really practicing, which is weird. Like he practiced 8 snaps, and he caught a nervous.
Yeah.
And then we have, of course, Lamar Jackson, who went through this whole team. I didn't think about it until just now. This just seems messy. As I'm naming off all this stuff, it seems really messy. This is not a well put together offense, and maybe this ends up taking into effect your ADP as we get close to the season, the values, right, for the trade assets as we get close to the season. But typically the people that have rostered the people that are on the team, they probably believe in, right? Like if you have Rashad Bateman, you pretty much believe in Rashad Bateman, right? If you have Zay Flowers, you believe that he's going to be the dynamic weapon. If you have J.K. Dobbins, you probably had him throughout the injuries. If not, you traded for him and gave up a difficult trade or significant value. Are there any values on the Ravens?
I'll put it this way. I think the only real value in my mind is Zay Flowers because he's the unknown quantity. There are people that just don't trust rookies.
But he's a rookie.
That. I know. I'm saying like that's the only value, which says a lot about how no values are on this team. He's the best of a bad group. I'll put it even a different way, right? If you're looking at this team, almost everybody on this team of fantasy relevance was a buy low candidate in the last 12 months. And if you bought them low, you're waiting to sell them high. That's almost always how it goes, right? None of them have gained enough value or accrued enough value outside of maybe Lamar to really make selling them now worth doing. So it's kind of like everybody is holding, which in my mind is a fair answer too, right? If you have, I rostered Odell Beckham Jr. in a couple leagues through the injury and the holdout and all that. I'm like, I don't know, maybe he comes back, right? And I'm not contending. So I'm just like, F it. It's better than anybody else in waivers. And, who knows? We could sign and play at any minute. So in that league, it's like, well, I might as well hold on to him to see what he does week one and then sell him, ship him off then. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like all of this is just kind of like, I'm literally just watching my watch on every Ravens player, like, just put up some points so I can move you at this point because I don't really want any of them. I like Zay Flowers a lot. I think as a rookie with that new offense and new offensive scheme and that new kind of front office, they wanted him kind of an attitude, right? Like they chose Zay Flowers. That bodes well. But rookie receivers have a hard time sometimes landing and scoring points. So I feel like almost every rookie, and I hate to say this, but almost every rookie sees a decrease in value before they see an increase in value. So I feel like everyone on this team is kind of like either descending or plateaued and just waiting to take off. I'd rather buy them now, I guess. But even then, if you buy them now, you lost out on all the value you had from 3 months ago. So why, if you're not buying them then, why are you buying them now? So I feel like it's all kind of wonky. It's just, I don't know. I don't like any.
It's wonky.
It's so a wonky team, my friend. Yeah.
I feel like we should be doing a country dance while saying they're all wonky, right? Baltimore is weird as fuck.
There is one player we haven't mentioned, and I specifically skipped him, but I feel like we can pivot. Mark Andrews is a stud, right? Like Mark Andrews is clearly the only player on this team that I feel confident in right now outside of Lamar, maybe. Exactly. But I feel like Lamar, just signed this contract. I don't think he's going to stay healthy. I still think he only plays 12 or 13 games. Yes, that's coming from a Bengals fan, but he just hasn't proven the durability that you want to see in a running quarterback. And it just makes me nervous, even with a new offense. But I think Mark Andrews is going to be fine with Tyler Huntley. So I'm not worried about that. Right. So part of it is like Mark Andrews, we've seen can put up numbers. He didn't do terrific last year, but in Dynasty, tight end is just bleak after Kelsey and even Andrews or Pitts or whoever. He's in that top tier still for me. So I like Andrews a lot, but even then I'm not buying Andrews right now because he's the only guy on that offense that people really want. It's wonky, Chase. It's just wonky. It's my official marketing on it. It's
wonky britches. It's like walking wet jeans. You got wonky britches, right? And it's just like
nothing worse
rubbing you wrong. It's rubbing you wrong. So you got
getting a rash,
britches.
Man. Getting a rash.
Wonky.
Get
britches,
it out of here.
Man. No, but it's so true, right? Like I can't get behind any of these fantasy assets right now, and I definitely don't want to trade for Mark Andrews just because I haven't been on that train. And right now, like if you wanted to, like you said, all right, these guys are plateauing now. They expect them to increase. Your time to acquire Mark Andrews was back before Lamar Jackson was even practicing, right? Like that was it. And now that you didn't do it, you're out, right? You're out. So let's go ahead and move on to a different division. We've discussed the AFC North in depth, which was well deserved, especially with the schedules coming up, what we're doing. Keep in mind, by the way, the Baltimore Ravens face the Miami Dolphins, which could be the highest scoring game in Week 17. This could be your fantasy championship. So I'm not completely out. Fantasy championship, right? No,
I agree.
I'm not talking about Super Bowl. I'm talking about fantasy championship. So I'm not saying like go ahead and move on to these, like move off these players, right? I think I would hold on to any Baltimore assets I have right now, like you said, up until they plateau. Up until they raise in value, and even then, I probably wouldn't move off of any of them because of the Week 17 matchup. If I have a competing team, if I'm rebuilding, I'm selling them as soon as they have their first big week.
Bingo.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead though, and let's talk about the AFC South, which I think is the more interesting division in terms of the variance of what could happen. And let's start out with the rookie quarterback in that division. No, I'm not talking about Will Levis, which I know you want to talk about so much. I'm talking about Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, baby. Are people too hype on him? Are we going to see Trey Lance 2.0? We're talking about possibly a worse prospect than Trey Lance. I don't think he was, but it's possible, right? He's a worse prospect.
Put that evil on me, Chasey Bobby. Yeah.
Did you say Chasey Bobby? Oh my God,
Chase. So we got to reference Chase again,
dude. Andrew, these Chase references are killing me.
I know. I'm all chased over here. Anyway, the question I'm going with on this is Anthony Richardson washed? I don't know if he's washed. I don't know if he's the next Trey Lance. I don't know if he's valued. I'm saying obviously not washed. We haven't even seen him play. I'm saying, is he like at his ceiling? It's hard to say. I really like the kid. I think he's going to do really well. I think that, again, this only helps the Colts offense. It helps Jonathan Taylor. It helps Michael Pittman. I guess it helps anybody else on that offense that might be catching balls behind him. What was the I'm drawing a blank, the other receiver there. Adam, no,
Alec Pierce.
Alec Pierce. There we go. Yeah. So again, maybe it helps Alec Pierce, right? Like there's a couple of guys that I'm just like, maybe, I don't know, but just that upside of Richardson is so alluring. It's just so nice. Yeah. We're chasing the upside. That's exactly right. Thank you, Jamie. I just think that there is a chance. And I actually talked about this on Twitter. I think somebody was asking me about Richardson, and I was like, let's not forget there is a floor here. I think a lot of times in rookie season, all you see is the bright, shiny lights of the ceiling. There is that chance, albeit small, that we see a bust potential, not quite like Trey Lance, who got hurt and all that, just where he comes out and is dull and is just like a Zach Wilson or one of those guys that, Josh Rosen's supposed to be amazing and then just crickets in the NFL. I hate to say that, but it's true. It happens every year. I feel like there's always one of those guys, like Malik Willis last year. Granted, it was a down class, but just is he the real deal? I hope so, right? If it's not him, then it's going to be one of the other quarterbacks, which we're going to talk about later, maybe. But again, like there's just a lot of question marks. But I'm in on Richardson if I can get him cheap enough. But that 102, 103, 104 kind of rookie pick range I feel like could be a ceiling, and that worries me.
Yeah, it's a weird spot, right? Because he has the weapons to an extent. He has a very good running back. That running back is playing for a contract to an extent, which contract, for contract years, which he's not in contract year, but he's playing for a contract.
Yep.
He might want to protect himself, which could end up opening up opportunities for the passing game. I'm interested. I don't know who's going to be the slot receiver, whether it's Isaiah McKenzie or if it's Josh Downs. Neither one of that big of an upgrade, so whatever, Are they going to let him run? Are we going to see another form of like a lame passing attack with some RPOs and, some weeks where you see spike weeks and then he just doesn't do anything for you in fantasy overall. But like when we talked about him prior to the draft, right? We said there's no way that he like ends up taking over the 102 for Bryce Young, right? There's no way that he takes over the 103 for CJ Stroud. And all of a sudden he gets taken fourth overall and he's now the 102 like immediately. It's like, Do we all forget the game film that we watched? Do we all forget what we said we were going to do? Like we brought up the Seahawks. People like the Seahawks more than the Colts before the draft, right? We brought up the Raiders, right? People like the Raiders more than they like the Colts before the draft. And all of a sudden he landed with the Colts. He landed with the offensive coordinator that made, Jalen Hurts relevant. Why all of a sudden are we transitioning our viewpoints because of the draft? And it's because of the hype. It's because of, oh my God, we can see this, and this. Just keep in mind, like before all this happened, we weren't taking him at 102. We weren't taking him at 103. We weren't taking him at 104, right? Like we saw Njigba go before that, right? We saw Gibbs go before that. We saw Stroud go before that. We saw Bryce Young go before that. And all of a sudden, we're looking at Anthony Richardson like he's the 102 because he landed with the Colts. It just doesn't seem right. It seems very counterintuitive.
It feels like we're double counting is what it feels like to me, right? Like there was this the upside is 102. We counted him as potentially going to the Colts, and then he went to the Colts and we did it again. Like the whole community at large was like, oh, he did that thing we thought he was going to do, so we should add some points to his value. Like, wait a minute, I don't think that makes any sense. We already added that value, I thought, and that's why he was 104, 105. So yeah, I think that's kind of what makes me nervous. I think I've got one Anthony Richardson share across my 15 to 20 leagues, whatever it is. I mean, I'm not necessarily anti. I just feel like at that price, I'd rather have Gibbs. I'd rather have Bryce. Like, those guys that are a little bit more solid. And again, solid is a weird term with rookie quarterbacks because some of them do miss. And Jamie mentioned it too. I mean, obviously Richardson does run the ball. He's got a higher floor than those other guys I mentioned. But again, when a guy like Jonathan Taylor is standing behind you, why would you run the ball? Like, just hand him the ball. Let him take the hit. I mean, I don't know. This offense is going to look a little strange. I mean, as a way to pivot, I do like Josh Downs a lot. I actually think there's the chance that he might be the sleeper number 2 receiver on this team. As a rookie coming in with Richardson on a new offense, like a new look thing, maybe he's the one that bonds, and Alec Pierce is kind of on the way out, who didn't do much at all last year, if I'm being honest. Michael Pittman has been kind of a snooze fest too. So there's definitely some targets available. And I think Richardson's going to need somebody he can rely on. Maybe it's the rookie that's coming in with him and they're going to bond on that. So I'm excited for it.
Hey, Jamie, did you know that Jamarcus Russell threw like a 120-yard pass, one time on a Gatorade commercial, and he knocked over the ball point when he was throwing it?
And look, Jamarcus Russell's still my QB1 overall, right? He's amazing. He's just a dynasty asset. I want every ounce of Jamarcus. Wait, I'm being told that's not true. Sorry, hang on.
Hey, wait, I'm not supposed to be saying that.
Okay, no, he's still terrible. Got it. Okay.
Oh man, we have another comment from Jamie, of course, coming in where he's talking about the, the such a Lamar Jackson hype where he could be a running back or a wide receiver.
Jalen Hurts, yeah.
It is what it is, man. I want to move on. Do you want to talk more about the Colts? I mean, who's their tight end? Jelani Woods, is he worth owning?
Again, yes, but barely.
Mr. Scampers, hi.
Hey, we got a Scampers sighting. What's up, Scampers? Yeah, and Rico, definitely. No, I think Jelani Woods is one of those guys that should be good. So I don't mind holding on again because tight ends take a while, and you can't really, you don't know what you're going to get with them. But
they really don't though. It's somewhat of a
right.
myth for football purposes, not for fantasy, right?
You're correct.
So for football purposes, it takes a little bit for them to develop and get on the field. But in terms of fantasy, their most productive years are years 2, 3, and 4.
Correct.
And then they fall off in most cases, unless you have a superstar like Travis Kelce or George Kittle or arguably,
I was going to say, you can use that logic on anybody, right? Like, oh, this guy just took a long time to get together. But I also feel like, again, tight ends are a weird batch. And then again, they're changing offenses this year with Anthony Richardson. Maybe Jelani just wasn't a good fit for that offense. He's a good one for this one. So with all the question marks and all the change and all the chaos, I'm kind of in on everybody if they're free. And Jelani's free, so might as well, right?
Jelani is free.
There's no risk. It's all reward at this point. And again, even if you get him and he blows up week 6 and you send him off for a third, that's still profit in my book. So I don't mind doing that kind of stuff. Just put him on your bench. Listen, I roster guys like Adam Troutman and Albert O and all these other guys at tight end, just aren't going to do anything. You know what I mean? Just on the off chance, I'd almost rather have Woods than almost everybody else there. So yeah, every roster is different.
Yeah, it is. But
and I see the Colts are making you tired,
Adam
Chase.
Troutman. I love Adam Troutman, and I just can't get on board with them. I can't anymore. I'm done. Yeah. I'm pretty much done. And I love Adam Troutman. After the Greg Dulcich reports and Sean Payton beat in on it's okay, so they're gonna use this blocking tight end again this year. Damn it.
Yeah. That's okay.
All done. I'm really I wasn't getting tired. I was just getting butthurt.
I get it.
All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about the who do we want to roll with? Do we want to roll with the Tennessee Titans and the rebuilding thing and how Mike Vrabel would never let them be bad? I feel
like Tennessee is that perennial 8-8 team, right? It's just it always feels like 8-9 now, whatever. But I feel like they're always that 8-8 kind of middle of the road team.
It's Ron Rivera 2.0, but they're better. He's a better coach. So Ron Rivera achieves 8-8 every year, but he has a way better roster, right? Vrabel achieves 8-8, but he will never refuse. He will always refuse to rebuild his roster. He can rebuild his roster, and he can have a Super Bowl team. I think Vrabel could have a Super Bowl team if he just said, fuck it, we need to rebuild.
We're blowing it up. Yeah, I don't see it happening either. I think with Henry, too, this is probably his last year of relevance. So if you still have him, now is the time to get out. Or maybe, again, like we said earlier, just wait until week 1 or 2 and then trade him, I think there's some value maybe in Tannehill as a really cheap QB2. I just saw Malik Willis get dropped in a super flex league, and I was like, well, I got to pick that guy up, just for no other reason than he's still young. He might have a chance.
No,
I think there's a chance that Malik Willis gets cut this offseason with Will Levis coming in, and Malik Willis ends up in Las Vegas, where we were talking about before. So there's still some carousel left to ride here. So I'm just saying, there's chaos in them hills. You never know.
Oh my God, we have Bust 2.0 over there in LAV.
LASV, LV, I don't know. LVR? I don't know.
LVA.
LVE?
LVR. No, it's LVA.
Who are you?
No, it's just LV.
Yeah, it's just Las Vegas. I don't know.
I don't know why. Wait, what's? Is it just LV when it goes on the screen in the scoreboard?
Yeah, or LVR. I've seen some places, but again, that's just if they have to put a third one in there. But yeah, it's just LV, or I think it's just LV. I don't think I've seen it any other way. Anyway, these Tennessee Titans are phenomenal. That's what we're saying, right? Who's the guy? That's right. Treylon Burks should be the guy, right? He should get some points. He's a dynasty guy that everybody loved last year, and just it broke all of our hearts and his ankle or his knee. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. He didn't do much at all last year. I think Treylon Burks is in for a good season. I think there's a chance that Will Levis ends up starting 6 to 8 games this year. We're going to have to see what he's got. I think that they're going to want to see him on the field before the next draft rolls around. So I think there's a lot of again, chaos in that room too, and the quarterbacks. And Tannehill, again, as a QB2, I like him and adding him cheap as a throw-in on some teams, especially if you're a contender and you're trying to make a trade with a rebuilding team and they've got Ryan Tannehill, they'll easily throw Tannehill in. He is getting thrown in for nothing in a lot of trades I've seen. So it's like maybe
I'll take Tannehill.
Plus. Yeah, I'll take Tannehill, put him on my bench. Sure. Bring it on. Like as a contender, I would love to have Tannehill because again, the quarterback position is a weird one, right? We don't know what we don't know coming into the end of the year. You're talking about week 17 here in June. I mean, Tannehill could be, balling out with Levis getting a little bit benched and hurt and just butt hurt in general and not getting a lot of play. And then Tannehill's the guy down the stretch. So there's enough chaos that I'm interested in all three of those quarterbacks at the right price.
Well, honestly, I feel like Tannehill has a better chance to land in Las Vegas than we have Malik Willis.
That's very possible. Yep, very possible. Yep.
They can save $20 million by cutting him this year. I mean, I don't understand why they wouldn't cut him. If they
especially
go to training
with drafting quarterbacks
confident.
2 years in a row. Yeah, I mean, like this guy clearly Tannehill's just got like dodging bullets. He's like the Matrix over here, just like, nope, I'm still starting somehow. Like they drafted quarterbacks and he's still the starter. As far as we know for now. So yeah, it's a crazy team, but it makes it fun for fantasy for sure.
Any chance Hopkins lands in Tennessee? Because I don't
think
I don't even want to know why.
I don't think he goes back. There was some talk about that on Twitter today, and I was just like, what are we doing? Like, that makes no sense. Now, granted,
why would they even interview him? He's like trying to make the Chiefs and the Bills jealous. Like, that's all he's doing. I was like, oh, this is him trying to make the Chiefs and Bills jealous. He's like, oh.
Yeah, look, I can go over here to a team that's not going to win at all. You sure you don't want to give me a shot? Like, yeah, it makes no sense. I don't think he goes back there. I mean, again, maybe I'm wrong on this, but it just feels. Well, he was there before, right? Am I wrong there? No, he wasn't.
Houston.
Yeah, I'm thinking Houston. Yeah, I always get Houston and Tennessee confused because they're like the Houston Oilers and the Tennessee Oilers. Like my brain kind of combines the two sometimes. It's really
we got what you're saying. You're good.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't think he goes there because he wants to win, and I don't think this team's built to win. That's really the analysis I have for that.
No, and they cut a bunch of assets that were potential players that caused them to win. But honestly, dude, Vrabel, just rebuild.
Yeah. Just trade Henry and move on.
Let's see you like this is almost like Bill O'Brien-esque, where it's like we just want to see you put together a winning team, put together a winning roster first, and then coach that team. Because I believe in you, Vrabel. I love you, but
I like him too.
Trash. Your team is trash every year.
He's like that 6th place team in your dynasty league that's never. He always gets in the playoffs and never wins, and is always complaining about the buy-in fee, and then always pays late, and then it's like you're just like, dude, just pick a direction. Like, come on, like, are you in or out? Like, I hate being 6th. There's nothing worse than being 6th to 8th in a dynasty league. So yeah, that's Vrabel in a heartbeat.
All right, let's talk about. Let's go to Houston.
Houston, what a fun team that one is. Houston again is like the 11th place team that just makes bad trades. You know what I mean? Just one of the man, you're 11th again. Look at that. I do like Dameon Pierce. I think that's probably my highest upside player on all of Houston right now. I think that there is obviously there's some talk about, CJ Stroud. Is he going to be the guy and all that? But there's not a lot of love there. You got Robert Woods, Nico, is it Nico Collins? Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And John Mechie coming back. And you got, like I said, Robert Woods, who I think has still got some value in the tank. Tight end, Dalton Schultz, right?
Tank
Dell. There we go. That was the other one I was trying to think of. Thank you. So yeah, there's a couple of names there. They're kind of fun, I guess, and maybe fantasy relevant, but I don't think all 4 of them are going to be studs. I think you'd be shocked to have 2 of them in your lineup in a season. Just see what you can get. But I think Dameon Pierce is going to get leaned on a lot with that rookie quarterback. And he showed out last year. They don't have a ton of money invested in him. I wouldn't be shocked if they just ride him until the wheels fall off, as the saying goes. And again, I just think that Houston's a team I'm not necessarily excited about. I was really, really hoping that Stroud and JSN both went to Houston and then got to do the whole, like everybody else is doing, the whole college quarterback receiver combo thing in the NFL. And it didn't pan out that way, of course.
I was so disappointed.
Yeah, like they traded up. I'm like, oh my God, they're doing it. And no, they didn't do that. And it made no sense to me. But I don't know NFL. What am I talking about? But the point I'm getting at is Houston is a team that has like almost all upside. I guess you could think of it like they're almost all buy lows still. Even like Nico Collins could be the wide receiver 1 on that team. And he's like wide receiver 40 in some places. You know what I mean? Like just nobody cares. And you can get him for a song. He might be worth something more later. And again, CJ Stroud, you probably paid a pretty penny. So you're not going to get him for cheaper than 104. Something like that. Maybe 106 if a league went a little sideways. But again, it's just a team I don't know, I'm not really excited about, but I guess they're in the NFL, so we have to talk about them, right?
Yeah, I really don't have any viewpoint on this. I mean, I like
Dalton Schultz is something interesting, I guess, right? That's what I'm saying, like tight end. But again, like
I would acquire Dalton Schultz for a third round pick very quickly. If
easily,
somebody sent me,
yeah.
if I was like third round for Dalton Schultz, I'd take it every second of every day. I really don't even care what my tight end room looks like. I don't care if I have Travis Kelce. I'd take it because one time that you end up having a good game, you could flip him for a late second, and I'd take that in a heartbeat.
Yep, I agree.
Honestly, like I wanted to provide more for Fly Meatwad because he I think is a Texans fan, but like there's really no analysis. Like, all right, Devin Singletary.
Right. Okay. So we can talk about Singletary. I do think there is some value there, but just again, all of these players, they all make me nervous in one way or another. And that's just Houston for the last few years, even ever since Watson left, to be honest. There was actually, I don't remember who it was. Somebody I saw on Twitter, they posted the quarterback room. There was like a video or something, and it was like CJ Stroud, Davis Mills, and Case Keenum. And I was just like, oof, like CJ Stroud has to learn from those two guys. Like, oh my goodness, like that's an interesting look. I don't mind Case Keenum, but for fantasy, all of them are, I mean, the other two, I guess, CJ Stroud, we don't know. But Davis Mills and Case Keenum are kind of wonky, to use that term again. I really hope that CJ Stroud's got a good head on his shoulders and is going in with no ego and is ready to play a team game and all those other things. I really hope he succeeds. I think he's a good quarterback with a lot of talent at OSU, and to go to the Texans could be a stretch. You know what I mean?
I hated his interviews in the draft.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't know if I saw enough of them to hate him.
Oh my God. He stuttered throughout he's like, and I want to be a good leader. And I'm like, dude, what is happening right now? Like, I don't want to shout after that. I get it, but like you're gonna be in NFL games, so you're gonna be nervous regardless.
Yeah, you got to be calm, and that's not showing it. I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about that. I still have Stroud. I have a good amount of shares of Stroud because he fell to me at 106 in a lot of drafts.
That's what I mean. If you can get him at 106, hell yeah,
I'll take him every time at there. Because quarterbacks don't typically descend their value right off the bat, and
not that much at least. Yeah.
Even especially, dude, if they end up adding a wide receiver in the draft this upcoming year, we're talking about money. Marvin Harrison.
It's very
Jr.
possible. Yeah, well, I was just thinking it's very possible he gets that connection, right?
They did trade their first round pick,
but they could trade it back. They could figure it out. I mean, they're obviously moving around, so we'll see.
If they sign DeAndre Hopkins, that could be a big deal. All right, let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, most exciting team, I guess.
Well, I guess we saved the best for last in the AFC South, but all of these teams are kind of just remind me of like that. Someone's got to win, right? Someone's got to get to the playoffs from these four teams.
I think Jacksonville feels like the Chargers. I just feel like they're equal to the Chargers, and it has nothing to do with their game in the playoffs. I just always felt like they feel equal to the Chargers. They have the same weapons, right? They have a guy that can stretch the field, although it's a different option comparison to Mike Williams and Calvin Ridley. And they have a guy that can play the slot or outside when it comes to Christian Kirk. They have other tertiary pieces that can play any
Evan
role.
Ingram,
like
ETN.
And then they have good running backs.
Tank again, yeah.
And then their defenses are always improving. No matter how bad we want to believe their defense is great, it's never as great as we think it is, but it's always improving. It's always improving.
So, well, what I was getting at before even is like one of these teams has to win, and I feel like it's going to be the Jags. It almost feels like a foregone conclusion, which isn't really fair. We just talked about the other teams, and they all have some upside and some question marks and a bunch of rookies, right? That's what we're talking about. All three of the other teams have rookie quarterbacks, right? With Levis, Stroud, and Richardson. And then you got, what could be one of the best quarterbacks of our generation. We still have yet to see it with Trevor Lawrence. And I just feel like this team is poised to go that next step. I'm not going to say they're going to walk to the playoffs, but it's an NFL league. It's still going to be tough. They're going to have to earn their way. But to me, the Jags are the most put together team in the AFC South. And I still think they're the fifth best team in the AFC North. You know what I mean? Like it makes me feel a little bit weird to kind of say they're the best team in a division that's kind of weak like this, but it's what happens. We see it a lot of times in the NFL. It's a cycle, right? And right now the AFC South is just going through a rough patch. They're just, to reference Shane again, they've had some bad Tinder dates and bad grinder dates and just bad all kinds of dates. You know what I mean? Like they're out there on all the apps trying to get whatever love they can. And
you're killing this. Andrew, you're killing this show, man. You're killing it.
Shane is missing out right now. I don't think he's on Grindr. For the record, Shane, maybe you're that desperate, but I really don't think you're there yet. But point is, Jacksonville is looking for someone to love, and maybe Ridley's that guy. I do think we can talk about Ridley for a hot second. We talked about Watson being rusty with the AFC North. I wonder what Ridley's going to look like. I mean, a receiver is very different. He had very different off the field issues, a whole bunch of different, things going on. He wasn't injured or anything like that. But I worry about him in the 0 jersey, man. I just don't know. Like, it's such a thing. Like, zeros could be bad luck. It could be bad mojo. It's the first year we're seeing it. So it's a ballsy move, but I like the reset. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Calvin Ridley. I think he was.
I was, but I'm not anymore. Yeah, I've cooled big time on him. Yeah, just honestly, we'll see.
I love Trevor Lawrence. I
do too.
Kirk is going to be his wide receiver 1. I think the Calvin Ridley is going to put on a good season, but I would not trade for a 48-year-old wide receiver. Like, that just does not make any sense to me. A 48-year-old wide receiver is just like, why would you trade for Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, I mean, you can get a lot better for a lot less in most places. At cost, I'd probably have Robert Woods over him at cost, right? I mean, they're not the same cost. I'm saying I'd rather have Robert Woods at the lower cost, who could be a wide receiver 1 on that team. Ridley, I think, could be the wide receiver 1, but you got to pay wide receiver 1 prices for him. I'm good on that.
Yeah, I don't want it.
And then what do you think about ETN and Tank, though? Like, that's going to be an interesting battle. Obviously, ETN did really well last year, but there was really nobody else there to take carries from him. And they drafted Tank Bigsby. I think that means they want to use him. Makes me nervous, I guess. I'm an ETN manager in a couple leagues, and I can't get what I believe to be fair value ever since the draft. And it just like someone there is going to be a dominant beast. And I think it's ETN, but man,
there's a reason why I saved this team for last in the whole entire thing. We've done every team, right? I've saved this team for last. I have a lot of ETN, and the reports coming out with Tank Bigsby is like what happened to Antonio Gibson with Brian Robson. And it's nauseating. I don't think it's going to be as bad. We're not going to see him phased out, but, I mean, ETN is an asset, right? ETN is somebody that could be a running back 1 if given the proper workload, proper targets, the design share. And Doug Peterson has been known to do that. So it's kind of weird last year to not see him involved in that capacity. So it really goes to show, or not goes to show, but it actually puts into question, is ETN an intelligent football player that can understand concepts?
I think so, but you're right. We have to see that still. We have to he has to prove it to me a little more this year, because again, I think last year was kind of more of a convenience and opportunity situation. If he's able to beat out Tank and actually earn that job, and I like Bigsby a lot going into the draft. I think that this is, I don't say it's bad for Bigsby to go up against ETN. All the positions for running backs really were kind of brutal this year for the incoming class, except for Bijan, of course, who went to Atlanta, which had a big opening. But I'm just looking at it like I think ETN's going to be the guy, but I wouldn't be shocked to see that passing or the handing of the torch kind of come along in week 8 to 10, somewhere in there, and Bigsby starts to take over. I mean, again, injuries happen with running backs a lot more often. You're bashing into the line a lot. There's a chance that maybe they do some sort of, split carry situation, and it's a 1A, 1B. And at that point, you're not going to get fair value back for ETN. So you might as well just ride that lightning and see what you can strap on and get it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, again, referencing Shane a little bit there with the strap on. But anyway, my point is, I think ETN is one of those guys that I want at the right price, but you're not going to get him for a steal right now. That's for sure.
Oh my God. When is somebody going to tag Shane? When is somebody going to tag Shane in the show? Let him know.
He'll see it eventually. Shane and I are good. We're riding cool. Him. We're cool.
No, we're riding him at this point. Like, so somebody needs to let him know that we're riding.
He's missing out.
Oh, it's great.
Needs an intervention.
Oh, it's great, man. Yeah, he does. He needs an intervention. Anyways, honestly, like I don't have too much other assets to add. Are you drafting Parker Washington? Like, do you have any interest?
I mean, I think I got him in a couple in the 4th round, just in a couple leagues, just to see what happens. You know what I mean? Like, I love that kind of receiver, but when you get into so many leagues, it's like you kind of have to spread it around and who you're taking, and picking different players in different leagues, and just so that you have a kind of exposure to all of them, right? There's a non-zero chance that Parker Washington gets some sort of love this year, and you can flip him for a 3rd. I mean, that's all I'm looking for with him. He's not going to splash and be a dominant player, but rookies are always kind of fun to try to bet on and see who you can make money on. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Would you rather have Chucky or Parker Washington?
Chucky. I think the Chuck Sizzle, I think that the future is brighter for him in that offense, and then the path is there for him to have relevance in a year or two with Boyd gone, and maybe, like we were talking about, Higgins staying. But if Higgins goes, I mean, we could see Chuck Jones be a 3rd or even 2nd receiver on that offense, depending on how things, wander out in the next couple of years here. Yeah, I just don't know if that happens with Washington.
Also, Jamie, I hate you because you're bringing up Joe Reed flashbacks. I don't want to talk about it. All right, let's go ahead and get out of here. Andrew, can we where to find you, man. What are you doing? What are you up to? You doing anything? I see you wearing a Fantasy Pro shirt.
That's
I
right.
don't know what's going on over there.
Well, I do write for Fantasy Pros here and there. I got a couple articles every month still coming out in the off season. Always talking Dynasty with them. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Hall FF. That's where all my stuff is. And then, of course, you can find me on the Dynasty Junkies every Thursday night around 9:30 or so. We have a rotating group of hosts, so I'm not on there every week, but we love talking Dynasty, having guests, and kind of doing a whole bunch of stuff. And obviously now we're getting into the full throes of summer with Scott Fishbowl right around the corner and Scott Fishbowl drafting, and then the Canton Expo that you were talking about. I love Canton. That's such a good time. Excited for that. So yeah, it's going to be a good summer. I'm excited for this year and just glad to be a part of the community. Glad to be talking football in June. That's honestly one of my favorite things. So thank you so much for having me on. It was great being here. Glad Shane wasn't here. Let's put it that way.
Dude, it's baffling that Shane wasn't here for this entertainment tonight.
You missed out.
Very disappointed in you, Shane. But no, I appreciate you coming in, man. You kind of saved my night. Of course, I always appreciate you. And there's a reason why I asked you to come in to handle the AFC North and the AFC South. It's because you know what you're doing. You know what you're talking about. And every time I bring you in, I'm never disappointed. I'm like Shane has been in the past. So exactly. Thank you guys for coming in. We appreciate y'all for following us, liking us over there on YouTube, on Twitter. Make sure y'all hit subscribe. Make sure y'all hit like. Leave us a comment as well. If you guys have any questions, y'all can find me over there at FF_intervention over there on Twitter. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.